So the sugya we're learning this week is Chovel. And Chovel, unlike Boira, some other malachas we dealt with, is not really that much halacha lemaisa, but I did write two very substantial tshuvas in Chelek Aleph Minchasos Shalosh Tshuvas Simachov Aleph regarding dam taburi. We're dealing with, primarily stem cell research and medical procedures in which maybe I don't have the medical terms right. Blood that is drawn from the placenta when a woman has a baby in childbirth, would that be a problem of chovel? And I wrote a tshuva to the staff in Shaarei Tzedek. Would that be permissible on Shabbos? So fundamentally, we find three different shittas, three different opinions in the Rishonim. Chovel mishum mai mechayev. Tosfos twice in Masechet Shabbos. Why twice? Because two sugyas are relevant, Daf Ayin Hey and Daf Kuf Zayin. Ayin Gimel is the Mishnah, maybe the most important Mishnah in Malachas Shabbos. Daf Ayin Gimel Arbon Oves Malachas Arbon Chosarachas, and one of those Oves Malachas is Hashoichet. Ayin Hey Omed Aleph. There's a Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. Shoichet mishum mai mechayev, either netilas neshama or tzoiveya. And the Gemara says everybody agrees shoichet is chayev mishum netilas neshama. The question, is there an additional chiyuv mishum tzoiveya? What is the tzoiveya when a person does shchita? He has an interest that the base of shchita should be colored with fresh blood. So once upon a time, when you went to buy meat at the butcher store, people expected to see the head of the animal or the neck of the animal to see whether it was recently slaughtered. Nichale, the litvas beis hashchita. So obviously that sugya doesn't deal with chovel, but rather with shoichet. And there is a difference. By shoichet, everybody agrees it's nesilas neshama because the animal was alive and now it's dead. And that is netilas neshama in its very essence. We're dealing with a chovel. He did not kill the Balei Chayim, but he actually did a chabola and he drew blood. And this is most relevant in medical procedures when a patient needs to do blood work. And in the hospital or in a clinic, they want to draw blood and have a blood test. What would be the Isser drawing the blood? So Tosfos Ayin Hayomed Aleph. And in the second sugya is Daf Kuv Zayin. Shmoyne shrotzim sheyesh lehem or hatzodon v'achoyvel behem chayev. That is the Mishnah, and the only Mishnah in Masechet Shabbos in which we learn chovel is chayev. What is the Isser chovel? So on our screen, Shmoyne shlotzim amurim b'Torah, hatzodon v'achoyvel behem chayev. Let's have a look at Tosfos at the top of the Amid. So right at the top of the Amid, Tosfos, hatzodon. Shmoyne shotzim achoyvel ben chayev loshen sheperesh bekindes mishum netilas neshama ikar kidi pirashti beperek klal gadol. Let's have a look in Rashi. Achoyvel ben chayev deyeshlem or kidi mefarash begemora v'havile chabura she'ena chazeres v'havile tol d'shoichet loshen achar. I don't know what levia means, but it's various different sources in Rashi. Rosh Nachar, Kiven the Yeshlem, or Nitzbau or Bedamad Nitzar V'chayev Mishum Sorveya. So Rashi offers two perushim, Chovel Mishum Mai Machayev, either Sorveya. That would be reasonable if you hit a person and you didn't really rupture his skin, having the blood come out, but rather the blood accumulated under his skin, and it causes a discoloration of the skin. Rashi says that is soiveya. But if you give a cut and the blood flows out of the skin and the blood just was spilled anywhere, or maybe it was washed away, and on the place of the wound, it's just a cut. Well, still would be tzeveya. Wherever that blood went, it colored either a garment or something, some surface, or even the water. So one Perish in Rashi is Choyvel Chai Mishum Tzeveya, the other Perish is in Shoma, and Tosfos, twice in Masechet Shabbos, the fine aid of Kuf Zayin, says Chai Mishum Shoma. The third opinion is the Rambam. Perek Chet, Halacha Zayin. If we could have the Rambam on our screen, that would be somewhat helpful. So the Rambam has a third opinion. Choyvel Chayiv, that's the Gemara in Shabbos, and okay. Perek Ches Halacha Zayin deals with Meleches Adash. Adash ki groiger es Chayiv, ve'in di shele begedul HaKarka. V'amefarik arei zeh Torah dash shel dash. HaChoyvel v'sebehim, HaChayiv mishum mefarek. V'chein HaChoyvel b'chai sheyesh bo or, Chayiv mishum mefarek, v'hu sheyeh tzorech l'dam sheyotze min hachabura. אבל הם נסחב להזק בלבד, פוטר מבני שום הקלקל. ואין אוי חייב עד שידם, או בחולב, שאויצי כגרוי גרס. So the Rambam's opinion is, חייב על חייב משום מפרק. What is dash? Is dash, I think, threshing, if I'm not mistaken. So, the Av Malacha is having animals trample over Tavua, breaking the outer coating and breaking out the kernels. Mefarek, told the Sheldash. Soichet is like a mefarek. The Rambam maintains both milking an animal and choivel bebalchai chayv mishum mefarek. So the first question we would ask, my nafkamina, is there a difference in halacha between the different opinions? The Rambam himself stresses two nafkaminas. According to the Rambam, there would be no chiyuv chayvel unless he needs the blood or the milk. Otherwise, wouldn't be an isser of mefarek. The other nafkamina is Shir Groi Geres. Because if Chayvel is told the Shaldash, then the Shir of Disha, like all the other malachas that are performed in Oichlin, say that are passed, they are all Shir Groi Geres. The same would apply to Chayvel. If Chayvel Chayim Mishum Natilas Neshama doesn't have a Shir, Chayiv B'Kol Shu. Choyvel Mechayev Mishim Tzeveya definitely has nothing to do with a Groi Geres. So there are various different nafkaminas and halacha in the three different opinions. Rashi, Tzeveya. Rambam, Mefarek. All the other Rishonim follow in the footsteps of Tosfos. And the Chiyuv is Natilas Neshama. And it's before Tosfos, it is Rashi. It's the first shot in Rashi. Rashi, Tosfos, Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran. All the great Rishonim, Meforshei Shas. It is surprising that neither the Ramban or the Rashba even quote the Rambam's opinion. They usually bring the Rambam's opinion, but here they do not. So obviously, the halacha would be in accordance to Tosfos, because the opinion of Natilas Neshama is Rashi, Tosfos, Ramban, Rashba, Ritva, Ran, all the Rishonim, Hayoshvim Rishonim b'Malchus, where the Rambam is always one of the most important opinions, but here the Rambam is a Das Yochid. The Mogen Avraham in Siman Shin Tesayin writes that the Rav HaPoskim maintain Choyvel Chayev Mishum Natilas Neshama. And that is quoted by the Mishnah Berurah twice. Shin Tesayin, Sivkon Chof Tes, and once again Sivkon Lamed Aleph. The Mishnah Berurah Sosam. He doesn't even bring the other two opinions, Surveya and Mifak. So the nafkaminas would be Netilas Neshama Chayev B'Kol Shu. So let's have a look. Sif Ches, Shin Tazayin, Shmona Shlosim Amira Mater Atzodan Chayev B'Chayev B'Hem. Afar B'Shelo Yotze B'Hem Damero Nitzlo Tachas Amor Chayev. Mishnah Buru Sif Kotten Chof Tes. And once again, Sif Kotten Lamed Aleph. Tam L'Chiyuv Chabola. Writes the Mishnah Berurah. Oh, it just flew away. We had it a moment. Okay, here it is. Tam L'Chiyuv Chabola. Scroll down. Tam L'Chiyuv Chabola. Mipnei Netilas Neshama Sheberi Samokom. Ki Adam Hu Nefesh. V'al Ken Afil Yotz Adam Kol Shu O Nitza Kol Shu Chayev. So the Mishnah Berurah stresses, because at in Sha'ar Tzion, he quotes Magen Avraham. And once again, see Kot Lamed Aleph. And the Mishnah Berurah stresses, because it's Netilas Neshama, Chayev B'Kol Shehu. According to the Rambam clearly says, Einor Chayev, Elo, B'Grageres. Because if it's a Tolda Shildash, has the same halacha as Disha, as Mefarik. Chayev B'Grageres, according to the Rambam, Chayev B'Kol Shu. So Taisus of Ayin Hayom and Aleph offers two different opinions, two different interpretations. Why is the Chovel Chayev Mishum Netilas Neshama? I want to make something clear. And some Lamdonim have confusion. When you kill an animal or Chas v'Sholom a person, everybody agrees it's Netilas Neshama. The Machlokes is Chovel. According to some Rishonim, according to the Rambam, it's not Netilas Neshama. As long as the animal is alive, there is no Netilas Neshama. The Rambam maintains Netilas Neshama is kipshutoi, only when you brought about the demise of a living creature, whether it's a human being or it's an animal. Netilas Neshama is killing. And therefore, Chovel Chaim Mishum Mefarik. According to some Rishonim, primarily Tzveit and Loshen and Rashi, Tzorveya. But when you kill a Baal Chaim, it definitely is Netilas Neshama L'Kol Yam. And that is the more regarding Shoichet. Now, Tosfos deals with the question, why is Chovel considered Netilas Neshama? And Tosfos offers two different explanations. One would be, you're making the animal weaker. You're wounding an animal. You didn't kill him, but you made him sick, you made him ill, you made him weak. A wounded animal doesn't have the same strength as a healthy one. Maybe that would be Netilas Neshama. Tosfos rejects that opinion. No. Netilas Neshama is because Adam hu hanefesh. The livelihood of every living creature is its blood. You know, when people die from a gun wound or a car accident or falling off the roof, usually the demise is brought about by lack of blood. And if there's not enough blood, the body isn't oxygenated. Maybe I didn't pronounce that word right. A lack of chimtzun, and that brings about the demise of a person, cardiac arrest. So Tosfos explains, why is Chovel Chaim Mishum Neshama? Not because you make him weaker, but because Adam hu nefesh, and Eitzoras Adam is Netilas Neshama. However, when you kill a living creature, it has nothing to do with blood. If you drown him, you didn't shed blood. He suffocated. But he's dead, and that is Netilas Neshama. So Shoichet does let blood. But the chiyuv of Netilas Neshama is not associated with the blood that he lost, but with the neshama that he lost. So when you kill a living creature, you're chayev for bringing about his demise, even if you do not shed blood. You strangled him, you killed him in 1,000 different ways. You drowned him in a tub of water. So you didn't shed blood, but that is the essence of Netilas Neshama. The question is, chovel. So according to the Rambam, Netilas Neshama is only killing. Chovel has nothing to do with Netilas Neshama, and that is why the Rambam's shitta is mefarik. Rashi Tzoveya. Tosfos, every chovel Netilas Neshama. Why is a chovel Netilas Neshama? Only because you shed blood. V'hadam hu hanefesh. That's Tosfos' explanation. So if you put a person's head into a tub of water, you didn't kill him, but you caused him to be desperately ill. Brain damage. You're not chayav mishum netilas neshama. You cause brain damage. He's in a coma. He will never gain consciousness. You're not chayav mishum netilas neshama because you didn't shed blood and you didn't kill. That's somewhat baffling, maybe, but that is clear up the halacha. So let's come back to the nafkaminis. What is the nafkaminis between Tosfos, the majority of Rishonim, and we see a Mogravom and Mishabura, that is halachic ruling, and the Rambam, Mishum Mefarek. One nafkaminis regarding the Shia. The other nafkamina would be regarding, I don't really want to use the blood. I don't need the blood. That's an interesting question. If Tosfos maintains Adam Nefesh and Netilas Neshama is removing blood, is there Netilas Neshama even if it doesn't need that blood? The Ramban says yes. On one hand, the Ramban agrees with Tosfos, that there's another Ramban of Ayam Vava Mesechet Shabbos. And the Ramban says that the Yisra of Netilas Neshama is both in the blood you took out and in the animal, the Baal Chayim, from which you remove blood. And that is a very fundamental Ramban. He deals with the Goyes, and he says, Boirer Goyes are malachas which are performed in both parts. Haguf shegazazu mimeno, vatsemer v'asar shenigzezu. Goyes and Mishkon was Oires Eilim. They cut off the hair of the animal because they wanted to use its hide, its skin. On the other hand, they used tzemer. So Meleches Goyes is in both parts. The hide from which the hair was removed and the hair or the wool that was removed. The Ramban says the same principle regarding boirer and the same regarding Netilas Neshama. So Netilas Neshama, when a person wounds an animal and he draws blood, is chayiv in tzorech rakalbo. He is also chayiv if there's a reason to draw that blood. It's also a chiyuv, even if he doesn't intend to use the blood. So if it's mefarek, the Rambam clearly says only if he needs the blood. If it's Netilas Neshama, not necessarily. Now, what is the din if we draw blood from a dead creature? The creature is already dead. If it's Netilas Neshama, there could be no chiyuv. If it's surveil, why not? Doesn't depend whether the creature is alive or dead. We're coloring its skin. That would be tzaveya. If it's mefarik, the same. Mefarik is mefarik whether the animal or the creature, human or animal, is live or dead. If it's Netilas Neshama, there would be no chiyuv if the animal is dead. That's a Gemara. The Gemara deals with the suffix nefel. Do we do mili b'yom shmini? And the Gemara says yes, mimon afshach. If the Vlad is a bar kiyoma and he is a live baby, then we have a chiyuv of mila derech Shabbos. If chas v'sholem it's a nefel, mechatach b'bosor ba'alma, there would be no isur because mechatach b'bosor ba'alma. So this Gemara proves if the child is a dead child, not a living child, there would be no isur drawing blood. No Netilas Neshama. How would the Rambam explain that Gemara? The Rambam maintains mefarik. According to the Rambam, mefarik is only chayv tzorech ledam. By mila, doesn't need the blood. Doesn't need the blood. Well, there is a din by mila, dam bris. there's a concept of a Tovas Dam Bris. Rashi explains in Shabbos Kuf Lamed Aleph Lamed Aleph. Every Mila requires Dam Bris. That's a Chiddush in Rashi. Rashi brings a posting in the Novi, Vegam at Bedam Bris Seif. We are all familiar with the three parts of Mila. Mila, Priya, Metzitza. According to Rashi, Dam Bris is a fundamental requirement. Lately, I discussed the Shir. Nothing to do with our topic today, but there was a ger that wanted to do geris, but he had an extreme case of hemophilia, and the doctor said he might bleed to death if they do Mila. So the option was removing the orla with a laser beam, but if there would be no blood, we need Dam Bris. That's a separate discussion, I'm just mentioning it. But we only need Dam Bris if we have a mitzvah Mila, if it's a living child. If it's a living child, Mila derech Shabbos. Chas v'sholem, if it's a nefel, then we don't need Dam Bris. And therefore, Machatech b'bosam alma, there would be no Isser. On the other hand, Daf Ayin Hey, Potzei Chalazon. Potzei Chalazon is Chayiv. According to the Rambam, Mefarek. Even though the Chalazon is dead by the time we remove the blood. That's Mavur in the Gemara, there still would be a Chiyuv. According to Rashi, what would be the Chiyuv? There is no Natilas Neshama. According to Taisvis, Chalazon is different because Dam Chalazon Nifkad Pokid, everybody would agree that would be Mefarek. The Chalazon is Mifkad Pokid. It's like squeezing juice out of a fruit. And that is why it would be Toldos Mefarek. The Eglei Tal has an amazing Chiddush, so typical of the Avnei Nezer. Daf Ayin Hei Potzei Chalazon. And in the Mikdash, they use the dye of the Chalazon to make Tcheles. That is the famous Chalazon of Tcheles. The big controversy, do we know today what is the Chalazon? But in the Mikdash, they needed Tcheles. And it was extracted from the Chalazon. So extracting the blood of the Chalazon is an Isser even if the Chalazon is no longer alive. Kimavur b'daf ayin hey. Rashi writes, Potzei Chalazon doichkoi biyodoi. We squeeze the Chalazon, the snail, with our hand. Why does Rashi stress doichkoi biyodoi? The Eglei Tal argues, dash is only when you bring out what is inside with applying pressure. That is disha. Animals trample on the tfuah. They break the tfuah to bring out the grain. The same regarding mefarek and soichet. Soichet peris. You squeeze the fruit to extract the juice. And therefore, chovel, according to the Rambam, is only chayiv if you draw blood by applying pressure. That's a gavaldige chiddush. That would explain why there would be no mefarek by mila, because a cat is not applying pressure. But Potzei Chalazon is applying pressure, and according to the Eglei Tal, chovel would only be chayiv according to the Rambam if you're drawing blood by applying pressure. I think the Eglei Tal is a gevaldige chiddush. He does have a point in Rashi. I offered a slightly different interpretation in Minchas Osha and Rashi, but it's not so nogea l'maisa. In three sugyas in Shas, we find the concept of mifkad pokid, chabure michbara. So some blood is like fluid, liquids in a jar. You just need to open the jar, open the bottle, and it comes out. That is the concept of mifked pokid. Chabura michbar is more like, as we know, the blood system, the vascular system in a human being, in every animal. The blood is part of the body tissue. Blood vessels are everywhere. That is chabura michbar. Dam chalazoin is mifked poked. Actually, as far as we know today, the dye that is extracted from the chalazoin is not even blood. It's a gland. And at this gland, there is a certain liquid which is used as dye. That is mifked poked. It's a gland. And various different animals have glands that have different liquids, as we know today in zoology and in biology. So, Netilas Neshama would only be by dam that is chabura michbar, and maybe mefarek would only be by mifked poked. And that is why the other Rishonim reject the Rambam's opinion that chovel chaim mishum mefarek. The Rambam maintains even chabura michbar would still be mefarek. Ksuvas dafhei omed beis. The Gemara is mesupik whether a person could be boile besula on Shabbos. Would there be an isra of dam besulim? And the Gemara defines the suffix mifkid pokid or chabura michbar. If it's chabura michbar, there would be an isra of chayvel. If it's mifkid pokid, there would not be an isra of chayvel. That is very well explained according to the Rambam. Let's have a look at the Gemara. Iboyali, right in the middle. Iboyali, ma'ile voil b'tchilo b'Shabbos. Just escaped me on the screen. Mifked poked o chabure michbar. Imtzim saloim mifked poked ledam yitzorach v'shori or lepesach yitzorach v'asor. Imtim saloim ledam yitzorach v'pesach mamelav. So the Gemara differentiates. If it's mifked poked, there would only be an isser im ledam hutzorach. Maybe there would be an isser mitzad as a pesach. So the Gemara is mesupik regarding dam besulim, mifked poked or chabura michbar. The other source would be kuf lamed gimel lamed beis, when the Gemara says mila derech Shabbos, and the Gemara brings its exeris akosav. The havamina was that dam mila mifked poked, the maskona is chabura michbar. So various different sources in Shas, we find the suffix mifked poked or chabura michbar. And I once again say, Netilas Neshama is only in chabura michbar. Other Rishonim maintain mifked poked. Only then would there be an isra of mefarek. So why do Taisus and most of the Rishonim reject the Rambam's opinion? Chovel chaim mishum mefarek. There could be three different explanations why all the Rishonim do not say chovel chaim mishum mefarek. One is only mifked poked there is mefarek, not chabura michbar. Just like the kernels of grain that are in the psilus, I don't know how it is called, moitz and garinim. What would the outer coating of grain be? And the disha breaks it open, brings out the kernels.
Chaff.
What is it?
Chaff.
Chaff. Okay. So that is mifked poked. The kernels are clearly defined. They're inside covered with chaff. The same is regarding fruits that we squeeze to extract their juice. That would be one reason other Rishonim reject the Rambam's interpretation of chovel mishum mefarek. The Maggid Mishnah offers another explanation. Ein disha ele begidulei karka. The Rambam maintains that human beings are gedulei karka. Other Rishonim reject that. Cows are gedulei karka. And that's why cholev chaim mishum mefarek. Because cows are herbivores. All they eat is grass. human beings are carnivorous and they're herbivores as well. So human beings eat meat, they eat fish, they eat eggs, not only vegetation. The Rambam still maintains that human beings would be Geduli Karka. Other Rishonim reject that opinion. So the Maggid Mishnah says that is why Tosfos and the Ramban do not accept the Rambam's opinion. Explanation number 3 would be the Eglei Tal. It is only when drawing blood by applying pressure that it would be Dumya Dedisha, not when making a cut with a sharp object. So various different opinions why other Rishonim reject Shittas HaRambam, Chovel, Chayev, Mishum, Mefarek. Let's get back halacha l'maisa. So when we want to extract blood from the placenta to use in research or in treatment, I wrote a lengthy tshuva and I was matio. And the heter is based, first of all, most of the Rishonim that maintain that Chovel, Chayev, Mishum, Netilas, Mishum, Lo Mishum, Mefarek. So the 2 tshuvas, Chelek Aleph, Minchas Osher, Machov and Simcha Aleph. Simcha Aleph is a tshuva that I wrote to my brother. My oldest brother is the chief rabbi in Montreal, HaRav Agora Binyamin. He's a great Talmud Chacham, especially a mumche in halacha v'refuah. I admire him greatly. So we corresponded regarding my tshuva and my heter for dam taburi. So, in my opinion, we rely on the Mishnah Berurah and the Mugan Avraham. Chovel Chaim Mishum Netilas, excluding Mefarek and Soiveya. And the placenta, the shelia, is no longer alive. So the moment we sever the umbilical cord and the placenta is no longer an integral part of the mother's body, it is like a dead animal, and there no longer is Netilas Neshama. That is the fundamental idea of my heter, even though I wrote various different Sdodim as well. So in this case, we want to use the blood. We need the blood. So therefore, it definitely would be Mefarek. So according to the Rambam L'choira, we wouldn't have a heter. Because I think maybe dafka dam of the shelia, of the placenta, would be mifked pocket. The entire placenta is only blood vessels, practically no other tissue. They're primarily blood vessels, and it's full of blood. So there would be mefarek if we would paskin in accordance to the Rambam. Why not be machmir k'shittas Rambam? Usually we would. But some doctors feel extreme importance in extracting the blood from the placenta. And with every passing day, we are aware of more medical benefits that could be derived from that blood, which is stem cells. And therefore, I think one could rely on Shittas HaTosfos, which is the Shitta of practically all Rishonim besides the Rambam. I think the Meiri does bring the Rambam, but the Mugan Avraham and the Mishnah Berurah clearly paskin in accordance to Tosfos, and there would be no Netilas Neshama by blood taken from the placenta because it is no longer alive. It's not an integral part of the mother's body and her blood system. It is not part of the baby's body, and therefore there would be no Netilas Neshama in my opinion. I want to come back to one additional sugya, which to me is a fascinating shaila, and I discussed it in Minchas Osher Masechet Shabbos. I don't recall which simon, and many times I apologize to my Talmidim. I remember the simonim in Tzayis HaChoshe, the Sivus HaMishpat B'Kiveg, and Minchas Chanach better than I do the simonim and Minchas Osher for a very simple reason. All those other svarim I mentioned to me are Gersa di Ankusa. Minchas Osher is not Gersa di Ankusa because when I was bocher or a younger man, there was no Minchas Osher. And therefore, I don't remember the Simonim in Minchas Osher. But somewhere towards the end of the Masechta, there's a Simon in Minchas Osher Shabbos and Ribui B'Shiyurim. And I discussed a fascinating machlokes between the Minchas Chinuch and the Or Sameach and the Meir Simcha. If we need to shecht an animal for a choyle sheyesh bo sakon, as clearly discussed in Shulchan Aruch, Shin Chof and all the Rishonim, is there a reason to shecht a small animal and not a big one? We need meat. In modern medicine, we have difficulty understanding why a chodesh yesh b'sakona would need meat. So as far as medicine is concerned today, there's no such a thing that a chodesh yesh b'sakona needs to have meat. But in halacha, there is a huge discussion. Chodesh yesh b'sakona that needs meat. Would we buy an avela or would we shecht an animal? So in halacha, we do find a situation in which a chodesh yesh b'sakona needs meat. Is there a kapeda to shecht a small animal and not a big one? We could shecht a little goat, or a sheep, or a calf, or a big cow. Would it make a difference? So there is a issa of Rebbe B'Shurim. Rebbe B'Shurim in Gemara we find chodesh yesh b'sakona that needs a fruit. And one branch has one rimoin, the other has two. We need to cut off the one that has one, and that's the issa of Rebbe B'Shurim. We once again find Rebbe B'Shurim in Mלאכת Hoitzah. If you need to be moitzi, but you take more than you need, that is an issa of Rebbe B'Shurim. Machloikes Rashba and Ran, whether Rebbe B'Shurim is an issa d'oraisa or an issa d'rabbanan. So the Minchas Chinuch says, if we need to shecht an animal for a chodesh yesh b'sakona, you need to shecht a small animal. The smaller, the better, and not a big one. That's an issue of Rebbe B'Shurim. We find the same. The Minchas Chinuch is somewhere towards the end of Moisech HaShabbos. The Or Sameach Perek Yud Ches, Rambam, Halacha HaRav disagrees. And he has a very powerful raya. Churen Yudalad. Hamavashel lechodesh yesh b'sakona also lebori. We cooked food for chodesh yesh b'sakona, and we have leftovers. He didn't eat the entire dish. Could another person eat the leftovers? The bishul was beheter gomer. The bishul was pikuach nefesh. The Gemara says no. If we will use the leftovers for a person that's not a chodesh yesh b'sakona, he might lechatchila cook more than the sick man needs, and that would be an issa of Rebbe B'Shurim. If we shechted an animal for a chodesh yesh b'sakona, we could use the meat even for a healthy person. Naturally, we're dealing with Yom Tov. Yom Tov, there is no issa of bishul because it's oichel nefesh. So, or even Shabbos. In Shchita, there is no chashash shemeyarba b'shviloi. So the Or Sameach asks, if there is an issa Rebbe B'Shurim by sheichet, why wouldn't there be a chashash shemeyarba b'shviloi? He would shecht a bigger animal. He should have enough food for the healthy people and not only for the chodesh yesh b'sakona. I think it's a raya gemura. But why? What is the difference between hoitzah and bishul, by which we clearly find the issa laharbos b'shiur and atilas neshama? So one approach would be davar she'ein bo shiur, ein bo issa atilas neshama. And that is what the Shmira Shabbos Hilchos, I think, quotes of Shabbos Alman Perek, Lamed Gimel Ois Dalet. What's the logic? What's the logic? Why would a Chumrah become a Kula? Davar she'osa b'kol shu ein bo issa Rebbe B'Shurim. What's the logic? Why would a Chumrah bring forth a Kula? The other approach would be Natilas Neshama has no shia. Nobody knows what a neshama is. There are no big neshamas and small neshamas. A big animal doesn't necessarily have more life than a small animal. An elephant is no more alive than an ant. Neshamas are the same, big or small. But that is, when we kill an animal, would there be an Isav Ribi B'Shurim by Choivel? According to the Rambam, of course. Grogeres. According to Taisus, Choivel Natilas Neshama. Would there be an Isav Ribi B'Shurim? It's blood that is taken out. But according to my explanation at the beginning of the Shir, yes, Adamu and Nefesh, but it's all about the Nefesh. It's all about the Nefesh. And the Nefesh has no shear. It is about the blood that you took out of the animal. It's not like mepharik, you're going to use the blood. The malacha is not in the blood, but rather in depriving the animal of its livelihood, and therefore a nefesh has no shear. But in Minchas Osher, I wrote another explanation, which I am thoroughly convinced of. The Rebbe B'Shurim is only when the shiur is in kamus, not in echus. And the defining principle is the tosefes shiur ha'im ra'ui l'chayav olav without the first part. So essentially, what I mean to explain is the Rebbe B'Shurim is only when we're dealing with a shiur that is quantity, grogeres, other shiurim which are in kamus, in quantity. And nefesh is not defined in quantity. As much blood as you draw out of the animal, you're always chayiv. And the reason there is no shear, because a nefesh is a nefesh, whether it's big or small, and therefore it's not shayach at all by netilas neshama, regardless of whether you kill the animal or you wound the Baal Chayim, regardless of whether it's an animal or human being, there is no ribi b'shiurim by netilas neshama. So primarily the shir today was about chayvel, but I also addressed that netilas neshama when you kill a living creature, and not only chayvel, but the essence of today's shir was primarily about chayvel, the three different opinions: Rashi, Rambam, Tosfos, Surveya, Mefarik, netilas neshama, and we also discussed the shaila halacha l'maisa, whether it is permissible in Shabbos to draw blood from the placenta, as modern research and modern medicine recommend very strongly. And with every passing day, we are more aware of the benefits that we could derive from that blood. And that is a shaila halacha l'maisa that is nagea to many medical institutions and many individuals, many families that would want the blood of the placenta for medical benefits and for certain treatments. So I hope today's shir was meaningful, and I'm looking forward to many in the future. Have a wonderful day. A good tov and a good tov.